So everyone, today, yes, we are taking another deep dive into the future of the DCU, because not so long ago now, as many of you should know by now, we had more castings for Superman Legacy, and that was Anthony Carrigan as Metamorpho, we have Eddie Gathegi as Mr. Terrific, Isabella Merced as Hawkgirl, and Nathan Fillion, almost forgot, as Guy Gardner's Green Lantern, so that's going to be interesting. So I just thought, okay, you know, since content, news, and industry stuff is kind of slow at the minute, and a few of you had been asking me anyway, are you going to talk about the DCU in a discussion series video again? Here I am. Let's do another one of these. So I'm going to get through as many as I can with regards to the future of the DCU. Of course, I will be doing another one of these just in case your question doesn't get featured. It doesn't mean that it won't be in this series. So I hope you guys sit back, relax, just enjoy a bit of nerding out within the community. So like the video if you do enjoy it. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for your support on the channel. It means a lot. And do consider subscribing, of course, for more discussion series videos like this on top of the typical news, reviews, and breakdowns that we do as well. So first up, oh man, sometimes I get stumped with questions. I'm like, okay, what am I going to say? So Mr. Scub G. Lees says, how would you like them to handle bringing the Flash into the DCU? Do you want a new Barry Allen, or would you rather see Wally take up the mantle? Also, would you want this Barry Allen to continue as the same one from the DCEU, likely recast, or just start fresh? It's also just interesting revisiting this question in this video today, because we already have Barbie already in its first 6 days. At the time of making this video, make more money in the worldwide box office than The Flash, and I'm pretty sure Shazam! Fury of the Gods have made collectively in their entire box office run. So yes, it's interesting to revisit this subject, because whether there's a lot of fans of the Flash movie or not, or people who do want Ezra to stay on or who don't want Ezra to stay on, whatever opinion you have, I'm not sure if it is looking so great for that iteration carrying on. Maybe once upon a time, even though a few months back or so, people were saying, oh, you know, this movie's just going to come out, there's no chance of Ezra carrying on, but there still arguably was something there to talk about in that conversation with Ezra staying on in some way, shape, or form. For example, if the movie did actually somehow make $1 billion despite all of the controversies and whatnot, there could be an argument that, oh, with the DCU kind of soft reboot, and I always get people commenting at me saying soft reboot. I say it's soft reboot even though it is largely rebooted, but since Viola Davis is staying on as Amanda Waller, she was in the Snyder era of the DCEU, that infers soft reboot, just to put that context out there. Same applies for Freddie Stromer's Vigilante, John Cena's Peacemaker of the old DCEU. All of these are staying on in the DCU. But anyway, since we're getting the somewhat soft rebooted DCU now, Ezra could have arguably stayed on, especially if The Flash was an absolutely crazy success. But since we know that it is the complete opposite of a success, the public image of Ezra, no matter what you want to take into account with what may have not been insanely accurately reported in some cases of the allegations, or some may be more accurate than others, no matter what anybody thinks about that right now, it all comes down to public perception. And what we're working with is one of the worst box office flops for a DC movie for Warner Brothers in its entire history, worse than Green Lantern. Then there's the public image of Ezra Miller. Again, personal opinions aside here, whether you want to believe more or less or whatever, public-wise, like optics-wise, it still doesn't look great. You're starting off a new kind of DCU with Warner Brothers Discovery, hoping for that to be a success. Do you bring two of the things that I just mentioned over into your new canon? Do you bring the iteration and take over that has this extremely low box office, in where Warner Brothers have lost hundreds of millions of dollars, and where the actor doesn't have the best optics in public or reputation out there, given all of the stories that have come out the past couple of years, especially since the box office has done so awful? Like, there's no argument about that, because I'm always going to get one person saying, oh, Boba, you're just a hater. No, I'm not talking about even my own personal like or dislike of The Flash right now. We're looking at box office numbers. There is no arguing with that. So I've gone on about that context long enough now as to why I think it's fairly safe to say that we're in the timeline now where whenever or if or when we get a Flash in this new DCU, it wouldn't be Ezra's casting. Now, my opinion is that I do think it would be a shame to skip over Barry Allen. I mean, they could go straight into Wally West in the DCU, but that would infer potentially that they've skipped over Barry. Barry is, I don't know, stuck in the Speed Force. Maybe they thought he died or something. So I do think that because of the recent run with The Flash for real life reasons or box office reasons, whatever you want to say, it would be a shame if whenever we see a speedster again, whether it be Wally or whatever, that we could skip over Barry's plot entirely with Iris West, his journey, the Reverse Flash, all of that stuff, just because of all of that. And now I do get it, though. Maybe it is, like, optics-wise, the smartest thing to do. It's like, hey, for like a couple of decades or so, there was another Flash in where people didn't even view Barry as their Flash. It was Wally West. It's just, for me, with Barry as my favorite. Not putting down Wally, though. It's just personally and subjectively to me, I think Barry Allen is kind of my Flash overall. Would I want this Barry Allen to continue as the same one from the DCEU? Now, I would say that just like what's happening with some of the canon, for example, David Corenswet Superman, clearly not having the same continuity as Henry Cavill's. Yet we're still getting Viola Davis as Amanda Waller. So I would say do the same thing with Barry as what they're doing with Superman. Keep Barry Allen, but not Ezra's iteration, continuity, or canon version of Barry. So with whatever the reset was into this universe, because I don't think it was really the Flash reset, because it wasn't really a reset, do the David Corenswet thing, but with Barry Allen, keep Barry Allen on. But I could imagine them doing, starting fresh with Wally West, optics-wise, different character-wise. But for me, even though I know we'll get, like, Zoom, Hunter Zolomon and stuff, I have this burning desire to see something with Barry Allen and Eobard Thawne. That would just be crazy. But I don't know if I'm going to get that. And even if we did get something like that, sure, you could argue that a speedster could pop up in one of these projects that you're seeing on screen right now. But let's just say they didn't. Like, we might not be getting a Flash appearance until like 2028, 2029, 2030. And that's like 7 years away potentially. But I would hope that maybe if there is a speedster, even if it's not going to be Barry, and let's just say it is Wally, that maybe he could pop up in one of these other projects, and we just have no idea about it right now. But I do turn this question over to you guys. As always, what are your thoughts on this question? How would you guys handle the Flash being brought over into the DCU? Would you want it to be a new Barry, kind of like me, David Corenswet Superman it, change things up that way? Or would you rather it still be Ezra Miller? Or would you rather it still be Ezra Miller's Flash, just with a new actor, yet continuing the continuity, if you're still with me there? Or thirdly, would you just not want Barry Allen and come in with a new actor and a new character, Wally West, as the new speedster of the DCU? So Dean Court 2134 says, what storyline do you think the first Justice League movie will take inspiration from? And who do you think could make up the team? So the storyline, I don't know where else to point in the direction of right now other than the vibes of Justice League Unlimited. And that's kind of what we know, actually. Some tangible information that we have so far with regards to James Gunn's inspirations. Like, he's given us some inspirations for comic book runs for Batman, Superman, even Swamp Thing in the DCU. But as far as the vibes of these heroes, and especially with recent castings of Metamorpho, Hawkgirl, Mr. Terrific, Guy Gardner, and whatnot in Superman Legacy, seeing that tweet back in December from this user here saying, hey James, you and Peter must be having tons of fun planning things out for the DCU, other than the Twitter crazies. Were any of the animated DC shows like Justice League Unlimited and Young Justice an inspiration for you when planning out this universe? And he says, definitely. So I know there's quite a few jokes right now, or actual genuine concerns, not just jokes, about people thinking, well, Superman Legacy, right? Isn't this meant to be a Superman movie? It feels like you're low-key backdoor piloting a Justice League movie. All while I've said this once, and I'll say it Again, I don't think it's as maybe concerning as some people are making it out to be. I do believe James Gunn in where he says that there's two sides to Superman's life that he wants to tell, and that is the case with Clark Kent and Superman anyway. You've got the Clark side with Lois, Jimmy, Perry, and everything, but then you've got Superman and his metahuman compatriots. And in this movie, with Superman, as I view it, being not necessarily the new kid on the block, but in terms of these other heroes out there like Hawkgirl, Guy Gardner's Green Lantern, Mr. Terrific and whatnot, they've maybe been out there for at least a year to several years longer than Clark Kent has. So Superman Legacy could appeal, like the title itself isn't like Superman Legacy as in, oh, like there's my son John Kent or whatever, and here's my legacy, continue it on. It's more of the legacy that Superman brings into a world in where, as James Gunn says, superheroes have existed and still exist. He's coming in and he's going to be kind of like, as per Superman, the beacon of hope, where people might not take him so seriously initially, but he leaves a legacy behind. And as per what, this isn't just unique to my theory, by the way, I've kind of adopted it and expanded it here. I do kind of like this idea because there could be a threat in the movie in where basically the title of Superman Legacy implies he has an impression on other heroes in where they want to tackle it one way or maybe another way, but his way, his Superman Kal-El way of looking at it is like, no, we need to do it this way. The way you're doing it there, no, that's a bit more like the authority or the elite. We're not doing that. We're doing it this way. And other heroes are like, maybe he's right. Let's embrace his legacy. Okay, like that, the way I'm selling it there is awful, like very cheesy, but you get my point. So Justice League Unlimited, I kind of went a bit off topic there, but you could see what I mean, like with how things could bleed out from Superman Legacy. I do think these characters will be relevant to the movie of Superman Legacy and aren't like a low-key, hey, this is a Justice League film. And again, as James Gunn said, Superman and Lois are very much so the primary protagonists in the movie. I do think Superman knowing these characters already as the film picks up, and possibly other characters out there, and as events go out throughout the universe, rather, Justice League Unlimited, I do see that kind of being the flavor or the vibe or the tone that you can almost see echo and resonate throughout this DCU. I'm not saying it's going to be like literal Justice League animated series adapted into the DCU, but that frequency that maybe is tuned into that there, and what we're kind of picking up the flavor and taste of with these castings in Superman Legacy is kind of like, you can see how it's all going to start here properly. But this is like a 10-year plan. That's quite a while, like a long 10-year plan. And we're already picking up in the first movie, having like a bit of that status quo. What is that like rapport like between Superman and his metahuman compatriots? That's pretty cool. I really dig that. So as for specific storylines, I really don't know right now. And my members of the Justice League, I've said it several times before, but it is similar to like the core of like the Justice League Unlimited show. For example, like Wonder Woman, Batman, Superman, obviously. Of course, a Green Lantern. Insert your Green Lantern here, whether it is John Stewart or Hal Jordan or whatever. Now, I would say Flash. I really would, but kind of awkward after what we just went over. I don't know if we're going to see... Well, I've got other thoughts on when we will see the Justice League, and I don't think that's going to be something we see immediately after Superman Legacy. And as I've said, in the lineup that we've got right now, clearly, with 2 movies a year and 2 TV shows a year, as per what Peter Safran said, there's no, like, League movie right now. So maybe there is time to build up to a Wally West Flash or whatever the heck's going on there. We're going to have to wait and see. So maybe Flash, depending on what's going on there. I think an absolute must for me is I do want Martian Manhunter on the team. I know we've kind of built up to that in the Snyderverse ever so slightly by the end of the Snyder Cut. It was teased throughout the years, but with this universe, very much so, without repeating that line all the time, but superheroes have existed, and they do exist, and they will exist. This is like, we're hitting the ground running. So there's a whole history behind that guy running on screen right now, of heroes out there, villains out there. Like Alan Scott maybe lived a few decades ago already in this DCU. Who knows? So I'd like to think that Martian Manhunter is actually out there already doing his thing. And who knows? Maybe the rapport that Corenswet Superman already has for some people. Maybe he's come across Martian Manhunter. But all of this, like this rapport he has with Hawkgirl, Mr. Terrific, whether he's known all of them or he meets like one or two of them in the movie after already having known like two of them already, it all lends to this larger growth and development you can see happening, where the universe is being cultivated. It is going to be cohesive eventually. You're going to have these relationships build throughout the years. And I do think that's a really good idea. What I'm seeing right now, and I think if you look at the ideas that are being put on page in an optimistic way, I think of the way that I'm putting it out there, rather than just like, oh, I thought this was meant to be a solo Superman movie. Why are there all these characters in there? Oh my God, this is going to be a terrible movie. Like, no, I do see the merit in what is being done here. Also, obviously, you could put Hawkgirl in there, and again, you could bleed this out from the Superman Legacy movie whenever we do get the Justice League formation, maybe even, brought to the table by Superman. Hey, I fought with Hawkgirl, or like new Hawkgirl way back in Superman Legacy, the movie, and other characters. I'm super interested as to how Superman and Batman are going to know each other, if they already know each other, or are they going to meet each other at some point in the future of the DCU? Wonder Woman, what the heck is going on with her? We might talk about some more of that later on in this video with another question. And obviously, my thoughts on Oliver Queen. Would love Green Arrow in there, but this is, we need to kind of build that core smaller group up first before we start choosing maybe additional characters, of whom maybe in your core list, I'm not saying they're not, but clearly the Trinity, a Lantern, Hawkgirl possibly, Martian Manhunter, but like, do we add Oliver Queen in after that, a Flash, etc., etc. So up next is from Jamil103, and I have to admit, I've been wanting to think about this a little bit more for quite some time, or at least I want to know more, because I think this show, or like the prospect of this, is at the bottom of a lot of people's lists in terms of interest, if you were to rank your, favorite DCU projects, or like what you're most looking forward to, and that is Jamil here saying, one theory I have is about Paradise Lost. I think it's safe to say that Hippolyta will be the lead character. Also, think it will be an intro to Nubia, the future queen, and how she went on to guard Doom's doorway. And how about that? Again, like I need more information about this show, because when people think about the DCU shows, and I might do a ranking video in terms of what I am genuinely most looking forward to out of all the projects, that is, including movies, a lot of people kind of put Paradise Lost as like, number 10 out of the 10 projects that we have. And it's not for lack of like interest, so to speak, like straight up, hey, I know this show's going to be terrible. It's more like, a prequel set thousands of years ago, when all of us are kind of asking what's going on with Wonder Woman, because clearly we've got David Corenswet Superman. We don't know who our Batman's going to be, but we got some idea with Brave and the Bold that obviously is going to be a point in his life with Damian Wayne's Robin coming in and having that somewhat son of Batman story maybe there. But as far as any kind of Themyscira or like Diana connection, if you even want to call it that, we've got Paradise Lost, in which Wonder Woman might not even feature in, clearly, because, again, it's a prequel. And that's why I agree with Jamil here saying Hippolyta would, if it's thousands and thousands of years ago, it will go even way before when Diana was born into when Hippolyta, and as is when Diana is obviously still alive, the queen of the Amazons. But I love the idea of what you're saying here, possibly with Nubia. If they could somewhat involve her, or like we get to the point of when Diana is born and when Nubia and Diana are growing up. But I don't know if we're going to really lean into that level of prequel, like, hey, there's Diana as a kid, she's growing older, and same with Nubia. It depends if you're going with that iteration, but she later goes on to guard Doom's doorway. If you don't already know what Doom's doorway is, it's literally like this gateway to Hades, on Themyscira that they guard. Because let's put it this way, if that massive freaking stone slab didn't cover that doorway and people weren't guarding it, then things would escape from that freaking rift to Hades, and literally, yeah, people have died defending Doom's doorway. So that would be pretty cool, and it could even get into, like, you can imagine something escaping and it wreaking havoc on Themyscira, and it threatens maybe like the mainland. Just looking it up again right now to refresh my memory, it is definitely set before Wonder Woman is born. And when describing the series, just to refresh some of your minds, Safran called it a Game of Thrones type story, which is like fair enough. And I'm just thinking, how much is this really going to contribute to their new universe? Maybe it will. Maybe I'm jumping the gun here, because maybe they do want to set up some like deep dive into the background of Themyscira and their politics, and, you know, to have Game of Thrones-esque visions and scope with it to make it that exciting for people to like think about. But it has to be of some importance. Like, don't get me wrong, maybe a lot of DC fans do want that insight into Themyscira, but I think a lot of people are just wondering, well, what repercussions will this have? How will it contribute? Sure, what would come from this would be Themyscira would be, you know, richly lore-filled in the new canon of the DCU, but it's like, okay, well, but what does this mean, like, in the larger cohesive storytelling plan of the DCU? So anyway, it continues on to say, with a story that involves all the darkness and drama and political intrigue behind the society of only women. Gunn added that the origin story would seek to answer questions about the home of the Amazons, saying, how did this society of women come about? What does it mean? What are their politics like? What are their rules? Who's in charge? What are all the games that they play with each other to get to the top? So again, to me, it does just sound more of like what I mean to say there is, it's something like he really wants to do. He loves Game of Thrones so much that now he's like the CEO of DC Studios. He has like this vision to like spit that onto, you know, Themyscira, because it does go back thousands of years, and you can technically do that with this. I just hope that, even though I'm not discounting that is arguably on paper something you literally can explore and could be like really, really cool. Like on paper, you can't deny that there is material there. It's just, I care more about, even though this is something relevant, arguably, I do think it needs to be something relevant to the larger side of things. But maybe I am looking at it too acutely in that fashion. We can have all of these current day things going on with David Corenswet Superman and Superman Legacy. We've got the Lanterns investigating or stumbling across this ancient, terrifying mystery, right? We've got Booster Gold. We've got Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. We've got Swamp Thing. We've got Batman, Brave and the Bold. Like, there's a lot of other things going on that maybe, to be fair, this is my defense for maybe what he's envisioning here. Hey, Game of Thrones is really big, really popular, or like still is. We've got all of these current day things going on. We've still got another like 10 to 12 more projects to announce before Chapter 1 is even over, let alone before we get onto Chapter 2 with another 20 plus projects. So with all of these other projects I just listed that are present day, that are fulfilling the need for what's going on right now. Oh, there's Superman, there's Batman with Damian Wayne coming in. Let's offer the audience something that we already have in the source material with one of the main Trinity members. Granted, it's not going to be about her, but like, hey, you like Game of Thrones, right? Well, Themyscira actually has a long-standing history of thousands of years of like, what is this society like? How can we dive into that? What are their politics like? Who's in charge? Will we get to Doom's Doorway? Like, all of these things. So, to be fair, maybe you were thinking the way I was kind of thinking about it, but then when you kind of argue that point, it's like, well, maybe they do want to offer something else that is still very accurate to the lore of DC, but can be somewhat Thrones inspired. And again, don't think when Gunn says that, or when I say that they literally want to copy and paste and replicate Game of Thrones. No, I think they just really love that idea, and they're inspired by it, simply inspired. So yeah, with that in mind, I do give them a pass for that, because it's, you know, the way I'm talking right now makes it sound as if I'm against this show. I'm not. I'm just trying to figure out what they were doing. And now, after rambling to you, or kind of to myself, this is like my own brain dialogue being spat out here to you, with every other project out there that they're doing. And again, it's important to stress, we've still got, because right now, the 10 projects that we have is less than half of what is still yet to be announced for the rest of Chapter 1. Maybe they wanted to give us something with the scope and inspiration behind that of the politics of Game of Thrones, set in the society of the Amazons from Themyscira. And it's like, okay, well, fair enough. Maybe people aren't going to be like racing to see this one straight away, but it is something that offers, something this side of the spectrum. You've got all of this side to the spectrum where there's all these modern day projects, but hey, here's something maybe a bit more flavorsome that you think you might not be interested in, but when you start watching it, it's like, oh shit, like, it's actually pretty interesting and different. I think that's the vibe of what they're going for. Because, again, one more time, every other project, from what we can tell, is present-day stuff. And I do get the argument, though, of like, hey, but what's going on with Diana? Yeah, I kind of do want to know that, because we know that Warner Brothers Discovery wanted to capitalize, obviously, on the new DCU. That's why they hired James Gunn and Pierce Safran to cook up a new somewhat continuity here. But they wanted to really concentrate on the Trinity, Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. Well, we've got a Batman project, technically. We've got a Superman project. Paradise Lost is like the only thing right now on the board that is, you know, somewhat, it's not really Diana related, but it's Themyscira. So what I would say in my guess is that we could get a Wonder Woman project. The answer to that will be given to us potentially with the other half of Chapter 1 reveals. Like, I don't think we're going to have to necessarily wait to Chapter 2, because I think that would be a mistake. But again, we've got 10 plus more Chapter 1 projects to be announced before it's over and we move on to Chapter 2. And one of those could be Wonder Woman. Yeah, it'd have to be, right? But let me know your thoughts. But just before we end this Wonder Woman talk or Paradise Lost talk, we have Earbud Thorn 5653 saying, is there any chance of Gal Gadot plays Wonder Woman in the DCU, since James Gunn opted for a prequel? In 5 years or so, I would imagine a younger actress would be preferred by Hollywood. I personally think Gal Gadot is incredibly beautiful. That she is. She's gorgeous. But yeah, the thing is, right now, as I've said it before in this video, what we can assume is that the current order that you're seeing on screen is the order. I don't think things will necessarily be shuffled around as we understand it. This is the preliminary lineup, right? You know, you've got Superman Legacy, obviously before that, Waller and Creature Commandos, but then you go into Lanterns. You know, I don't think they're going to just insert a Wonder Woman thing right there and then, because I feel like Gunn would have announced that with the DCU Chapter 1 Gods and Monsters announcement video. Like, if he wanted a Wonder Woman project there, he probably would have put it there. I doubt there's going to be such huge reshuffling. So, no matter what, with these placements of 2 movies a year, 2 TV shows potentially, this should take us up to around 2027. And with what I've been saying already, and I think this is a lot of people's opinions, whether you love Gal Gadot's casting as Wonder Woman or not, you may love the casting, you may not love 84, I don't know, you might love 84 and love the casting, or you just might hate. Like, there's always like 3 options to these things. I do think if you've recast Batman, I've said this before, and I think if you've recast Superman, that's 2/3 of the Trinity. I think if you're going that far, you've already gone far enough to, like, we get Ben Affleck probably wasn't coming back anyway, other than like a courteous appearance in The Flash and Aquaman 2 before that got scrapped. Since you've done that, you may as well recast all the Trinity. You've already recast 2/3 of it. I'm sure someone's going to type in a comment saying, no, Boba, I could see Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman standing there with a new Batman face and a new Superman face, even though we've seen her stand there with Ben Affleck's face as Batman and Henry Cavill's face as Superman. But I say at this point, look, it would just be weird at this point. You've already gone through the extent of not bringing Cavill back, getting a new Batman. The continuity has changed there. I think if you're rebranding 2/3 of the Trinity, man, I may as well just like rebrand the whole thing with new actors and new continuity as well. Like, to be fair, like, if you're doing a new DCU and we've got a whole new continuity, it's not just the mere factor of you've recast 2/3 of the Trinity. They're also completely retconning David Corenswet's Superman, well, like Superman, right? Like, it's not going to be Henry Cavill's backstory. He's not going to have died against Doomsday. Like, this David Corenswet Superman's, like, not a noob. He's been out there for a little while. It's not an origin story, but he's not a veteran. So they're also retconning Batman. Like, we've got a larger Bat family here. For crying out loud, in the Snyder era days, they killed Dick Grayson. It wasn't Jason Todd. Dick Grayson's Robin armor was in the freaking... Like, do you know what I mean? If you're retconning also the actual source material from the previous DCEU with 2/3 of the Trinity, and not only doing that, but also recasting them, I say it again. There's no... I really don't think there's that much point still keeping Gal Gadot. I think we can all agree here, even if you right there are a huge fan, given what I just said about the canon, from the DCEU being rewritten, given that they're also recastings. They're not just straight up recastings. They're literal backstory rewrites because we're in a new universe. Why would you keep Gal Gadot? Like, sure, you could still retcon her backstory, but I think it would just be a bit too convoluted in the sense that, oh, we've seen Wonder Woman 84, but those technically never happened in that way. But she still is, yeah, nah, just give us a new Wonder Woman. That's what I would say. 100%, 200%. I'm, if I had a hammer right now, I'd be like, bang, order in the Boba court. Like that, I've decreed it. Like, new Wonder Woman. I need to stress, that's no major dislike or major like of Wonder Woman as portrayed by Gal Gadot there. That's just me saying, given everything I said about what they're already setting the precedent with, of their choices and recastings and backstory changes, because of, like, this clearly isn't Henry Cavill's Superman in Man of Steel. Like, it's a complete new story for him, and the same for Batman. It's time to do it. It's time to recast her. If they do keep her, that's one thing I need to entertain. I'll make that video when I make that video. Let's just put it that way. I won't outrage, but I will just be like, because again, it's nothing personal here. It's just like, I don't get what you're doing. That's what I would say. Like, given the reasons I said here today, why didn't you recast the third Trinity member? That would be the most baffling aspect of if they kept one of the three. So we have Justin Boles 9645 here saying, I'm wondering if Metamorpho, Hawkgirl, etc. are being influenced by the more effective but extreme authority characters operating. I feel like some authority characters could show up in the movie either as the Elite or a fill-in for the Elite, since Manchester Black is on both teams, for example, in the comics. Superman can maybe be the only one opposing these more violent measures, leading into the central conflict of the film. Yeah, so without going over so much of what I said earlier, I mean, I'm not saying this is the exact thing of what's going to happen, but I do feel like we're swimming in the right waters here of ideas. I know James Gunn not so long ago said that I never said the Authority were in the movie, but he's not denying it at the same time. We are getting a movie. We know they do anything by any means necessary to kind of achieve their vigilante justice. That's not by the book of what Superman agrees with. That's naturally going to be something, going back to what I said earlier, the Superman legacy title that he wants to leave behind. Maybe what Justin here is saying could be argued as plausible in terms of if other characters out there like Hawkgirl or Metamorpho are already out there, and there's no Justice League from what we understand, because I do think we're doing a slow cook to that potentially, even though there are almost these mini leagues that are being formed, like we might see in this movie, a little bit of a team up scene maybe, that there could be, given that there's no one kind of league to look up to, there's no force, there's no Justice League to set the precedent of how you should do things as a hero, hence again the title of Superman Legacy. There could be other bad characters out there, if you will, again, hence the Authority, and hence where a lot of these fan theories are coming from. As I've said many times before, we could be experiencing, and with James Gunn's teasers of Kingdom Come a lot, a reverse Kingdom Come situation. I'll say it one more time, very briefly, but in Kingdom Come, it's set in the future, in where after, the heroes got a bit older, the Justice League's got a bit older, Superman's kind of left that behind a little bit, but he comes back because the world has been filled with heroes, wannabe heroes, a lot of heroes who just do anything by any means necessary, to the point of where it's getting way out of hand. They're not doing it by the book at all. They don't have anyone to lead them by example. They don't really particularly care to. It's just like a bunch of people doing vigilante justice out on the streets, but completely not remotely by the books. So the Justice League come back fully formed with Superman at the helm of it, and they're like, well, I see that you've been seeing people going around, other heroes, metahumans doing all of this. We're not going to let them do it in this way anymore. Like, we're going to do something about it. So what I mean by reverse of that is, how about doing some kind of environment like that, but when Superman's younger, like David Corenswet's age, where he's not at Kingdom Come level street cred, if that makes sense. So hence the legacy, as I keep going over with the title, he sets the precedent of the legacy. He becomes the example that others follow. Some probably might not, which is maybe why we're still getting an Authority movie. Some people might still be like, nah man, I don't care. I'm not doing that. But what this could ripple onto is, as Justin says, I'm wondering if Metamorpho, Hawkgirl, some other heroes are maybe being influenced. They're not straight up authority. That's not what we're saying here. But they could still be a bit like not so in line with the way you should conduct yourself as a hero that is already just instilled in Clark's philosophy, his ideology of being Superman. And he sees that Hawkgirl or Metamorpho or whoever else, they're not villainous, they're not like anti-hero, but they're like, oh, damn, you know, you're not exactly doing, oh, maybe you are getting a bit influenced by this authority character. And Clark's like, I can't let this stand. I'm not going to fight you, but like maybe he tries to navigate or again asserts his inspiration out there to other heroes. I may have like articulated this poorly, but hence the reverse Kingdom Come situation where that's already happening now. And I kind of like that idea. It almost makes a little bit more sense, or not more sense, because again, Kingdom Come came about in a way where there's so many metahumans and heroes out there. Superman had kind of gone away from the fray or the spotlight, so that situation arose. But it almost makes sense that since James Gunn has said this is a DC universe that has existed with heroes and villains long before Superman, it does make sense that when Superman is only really in his infancy in this movie and there's no Justice League, that there could be a lot of heroes or wannabe heroes out there who are very Kingdom Come-like and who are giving a very bad look to other heroes like Superman, who doesn't want to be looked at in that way because of other heroes like from the Authority who are conducting themselves like that. And maybe what Justin is saying here, that maybe some Authority characters could show up and Superman is like the only one who is opposing their ideology of more violent measures, leading into possibly a central conflict of the film. I don't know if that will be the central conflict of Superman Legacy, but I could imagine Hawkgirl or Metamorpho or Mr. Terrific or Guy Gardner, or I don't know, just being like, hey, have you heard of these guys? And they're already kind of good with them. And Superman's like, oh, hey, nice to meet you. But as he kind of learns a little bit more about them, he's like, why do you support these guys' actions? Like, they're not the people to endorse. But without going round in circles, I do like the flavor of this theory. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Now, up next with Brutal Vengeance, he asks, how do you think Metamorpho will be handled in Superman Legacy? Do you think he's already made interactions with Hawkgirl and Guy Gardner and they're working together? We know that this is a running DCU, so it's possibility they are teaming up together. Now, I included the reply here because this is a theory I've seen out there that I wouldn't rule out. It does seem almost a bit too typical or formulaic of what a comic book movie could do. But Crowd Control here says he might be a villain who Superman helps to turn hero, like in the animated episode. So yeah, like some people I've seen out there are saying that Anthony Carrigan's Metamorpho could be created in the movie. So like we have Hawkgirl, Mr. Terrific, you know, Nathan Fillion's, Guy Gardner out there. But one of the conflicts of the movie could be Metamorpho even being created. Some people are saying, you know, we don't know for sure, even though it's quite likely that when, you know, Lex Luthor is cast as whoever, that maybe as a part of the plot, he wants some skin in the game and he wants to create a metahuman or something, because there's a lot of metahumans out there, as we've just discussed. Again, this is not the like main theory. This is me trying to compile what other people have said, and I'm not saying it's even great. I'm just trying to like make some sense of it. So I guess the idea is that we have this situation where we have Metamorpho get the powers he does, and as per like his backstory, he tries to get rid of them initially. Like he genuinely tries to go through various different things and experiments to try and undo them. It never really kind of works out, and as per the source material, he comes to accept them and use them for good, to put it simply. But I suppose that you could maybe implement a plot there for where, even though this may sound so cliche, so insert your own ideas to make it complex here down in the comments below if you want to, but we could have Metamorpho taken advantage of. He doesn't even necessarily expect the outcome of what's happened to him. He can change his body into like literally any kind of element out there, which can include kryptonite, so this could be very dangerous for Clark. But then by the end of the movie, as Crowd Control says, he might be a villain who, or maybe not villain, but like maybe a reluctant kind of, you know, victim of some, you know, person out there, some larger person out there like Lex Luthor, who turns into a hero where Clark doesn't want to best him in the way that the Authority would, but speaks to him and says that you can use your powers for good. And that's how Metamorpho's origin could come about. But we could see, for example, Hawkgirl or Mr. Terrific and other characters like Guy Gardner, especially with his attitude, want to approach Metamorpho's situation with this guy who's just freaking out but being taken advantage of with absolute violence, and let's just take him down. But Clark is like, sure, like we might have to restrain him, but as we were just going over in the prior question, let's do it in a bit more of a compassionate way. Have empathy for those who are even seemingly our villain at face value, and kind of unwind it. That's kind of what Clark does. He has a lot of compassion even for those he's up against. So there is a theory that Anthony Carrigan, because one thing you have to remember is that some people are attributing to the fact that Hawkgirl, Eddie Gathie's casting as Mr. Terrific, Nathan Fillion, and that were in one story. But then we had, like, the next day or the day after that, a whole separate thing for Metamorpho. Now, you could argue, but that's because the deal was only finalized then. But maybe I'm getting to a bit of conspiracy territory here. That individual casting and those individual, multiple trade reports just about Metamorpho, just about Anthony Carrigan playing him. He could be a larger character potentially than, the other characters like Hawkgirl, Mr. Terrific, and Guy Gardner appearing in Superman Legacy. Maybe that's because even though we know Metamorpho is a good guy, they might want to make something bigger out of Metamorpho, and maybe that is an origin in some fashion of what I was speaking about here, and where he's not like the most diabolical guy or anything. It's just he might be the difficult situation to deal with in the movie before, at the end, Superman's hope inspires him to, look at his powers to do good, on top of the other influence he might have on the other heroes in terms of being an example to follow. So in conclusion there, I could be completely wrong. Maybe Metamorpho's already been here for a hot minute, just like Hawkgirl and Guy Gardner and Mr. Terrific. I mean, to be fair, we don't know how long those other heroes have been around. Some may have been around for 6 years, some only for 3 years, some for 15 years, like Guy Gardner, who seems to be a little bit of an older Lantern compared to that of the source material, if you just want to use Nathan Fillion's age there. So Metamorpho could have been Metamorpho for 5 years. But I have to admit, the more I think about the basic concept of what I just said with how Metamorpho could be, like, actually quite integral in the story, in a world of metahumans already there. Maybe he gets created, or like the very origin to him happens, but maybe through the implementation of someone worse, like Lex Luthor. Again, when I say it out loud, it just sounds too basic, and I think I'm going to get a lot of people saying that in the comments. But again, that's why I say implement your own complexities there. Flesh it out, make it sound a bit better. And I do kind of like the idea of that, because it's kind of a cool arc by the end of the movie, if with the other heroes having their own ideology on how to handle that situation with Metamorpho, but Clark has his own way, and that, implements this legacy he leaves to other characters, but also he resolves it with Metamorpho and actually invites him to team up one day or something like that, or at least to begin to accept his powers. That could be really cool. Like, that could be kind of a cool way to do it, and it could be a bit of investigation. Totally forgot to talk about the journalism side. Clark with the Lois side, the Perry, Jimmy, they could be looking into, there was this new attack and there was this element used. And it's like, well, how's that possible? And then 50 minutes into the movie, there's footage of this guy who can change his body into any element out there. And, they're learning more about it. And so then Clark and his Superman side flies out there and, fills in maybe some of the other heroes, and they look into it a bit more. Like, there's a lot of investigation that can be done with Metamorpho, even tracking it down to his identity, Rex Mason, and looking into, okay, so who is he? Where did he come from? Where did he work? Was he suffering from any illnesses? Did he have any experimental kind of things done to him at LexCorp or some subsidiary of that? I don't know. That could be, like, really cool. And then by the end of the movie is, as I said. So there is a journalistic aspect that could be applied to, Lois and Clark there, Jimmy, the Daily Planet, and those supporting characters, as well as his metahuman compatriots with the castings that we already have in the movie. So again, let me know your thoughts about all that. I could be completely wrong, somewhere on the ball, somewhere not on the ball. I don't know. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I think I'm going to end it there for today. I've been rambling for long enough, or so my recording tells me. If I didn't get to your question, I will do in the next video. Let me know if you want me to expedite that. I'm more than happy to release another one of these soon. They're really fun to make. I just love interacting with you guys, your ideas, then me trying to expand that. But then when you see this video, you expand on that, and it's just constantly going back and forth. So yeah, with that being said, let me know what you thought of what we discussed in today's video. I'd really appreciate a like on this video. It helps me out so much. So thank you if you've gone ahead and done that. Consider subscribing to stay up to date with discussion series videos like this, news reviews when news comes out. Until next time, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you people of the DCU in the next video. Goodbye.